Hello, this is Dan Gilligan with Paradigm Insurance. Thank you for joining us today. This video is done as a follow-up to a video that we had done last week, in which we discussed coronavirus and business interruption insurance claims. And there's been some developments over the past week that I think are noteworthy and that I think make it appropriate for us to augment what we had talked about last week. So before we get into that, the quick disclaimer, this is not advice. I'm not an attorney, I'm an insurance agent. If we were to provide advice, that would be done on an individual basis with us understanding your circumstances. That's not the case here. This is general information and my opinion, and it is provided with the hope that this information will be of some value to you in you deciding what is best for yourself and your organization. So last week we talked about kind of the nuts and bolts of insurance policy construct as to why we were not expecting for carriers to be paying for these coronavirus business interruption losses. And although we said that was pretty much the position and the expectation, that there were a couple of outlier considerations that were worthwhile to be aware of that may allow for insurance companies to be required, either through litigation or through legislation, to pay these claims. And what's happened is there's been some further developments regarding those outliers that I think make it appropriate to be attentive to them. We had talked about legislatures, a couple of them, New Jersey being one of them, in which there was active legislation that would essentially require insurance carriers to suspend any of the applicable exclusion conditions that they would use in seeking to deny and preclude coverage, and which would thereby just require these carriers to pay these claims. So what's happened is that New York State has introduced similar legislation. So that's noteworthy. Also, the Congress of the United States wrote a letter to the four the largest insurance associations in the country, stating that as Congress, they expected carriers to pay these claims. Now, those associations responded quickly, saying, we're not going to. But it is noteworthy that Congress is apparently looking to put a little bit of pressure on the industry. We also have the first claim litigation arising out of a denial of a claim, or at least the first litigation that we've come across, and that is a restaurant group. It was in Nevada or California, where they put in a claim for this, and it was declined by a national carrier, and there's now a law firm suing the carrier over that declination. So related to that, what's happened is in the community of insurance geeks, of which I'm a proud associate member, we've been attentive to what law firms in this focus area are doing. And just as there are attorneys who specialize in media law or intellectual property law or various other things, there are attorneys who specialize in insurance and related litigation, and a couple of them are attempting to take an aggressive and a creative approach to positing these claims in a way that they're able to work through and around the intended exclusionary provisions that the underwriters have in these policies, and thereby find coverage that way. So what this comes down to is that there's outside forces outside of the policy construct that are pressuring carriers towards paying these claims. And you say, well, that may be extraordinary, but we also have to consider that the situation in general is extraordinary. We see other extraordinary things happening, like the federal government looking to release $2 trillion. The federal government spends about $4 trillion a year on everything. So $2 trillion is a massive number. That's extraordinary. So as you look at all these things, you have to say, what's going to happen? And if you want to be imaginative, which is what we're being, you may conclude that maybe not now, but maybe in a year, 2 years, 3 years, there may be something that reaches the resolution requiring these insurance companies to pay these claims through one of the things that we've just been talking about. So, okay. It's 2022, you pick up the paper. Well, look at this. Insurance companies have to pay some of this in whatever form that comes out to. I think I should put in a claim for the stuff that I realized in my business in, February, March, April, and hopefully that's it, of 2020. That's likely not a strong position to be in. One reason being that insurance companies have basically the language in those policies stating something to the effect of, we want you to advise us of anything that you think may be a claim and do so in a timely manner. You're required to do that. The other thing may be, and this is speculative, but all of this is, that if there is some determination that carriers are going to have to be responsible for some of this, and the carriers are not weak actors in this. They look at this. I mean, this will, if this happens, this will change the industry. There'll be insolvencies. What carrier is going to want to be in that business if essentially their business arrangement can be overturned through some outside force. I mean, if you look at it from that standpoint, it will certainly change the availability of insurance at that marketplace, along with hurting those carriers. So they're not going to, just be weak on this. So, is there the potential for some type of negotiated deal? And that negotiation may allow for the claims to proceed, which are already in, for the people who've been waiting or had these things submitted previously. Again, speculative. So, that makes us have to think, should I put in a claim? And as I mentioned in the last video, we have a couple of accounts here in my office who are, they're pursuing this. They want to put in a claim and see how things work out. So, I'm having this discussion and I want to be clear in that I'm not optimistic and I'm not looking to in any way instill optimism in you in thinking that this is something worth pursuing. I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't want to ignore the possibility. I don't think that that's, really prudent. We have to consider all possibilities. So if you're thinking this through and you say, geez, maybe I should submit a claim. What's involved with that? Well, it's not complex. It's a simple process. And, we can talk about that offline, so to speak. But one thing to consider is that should these claims move forward in any way, they will be adjusted. Business interruption losses are something that has to be proven. And I've certainly been through that. My largest business interruption claim was over $4 million. And that was a medical packaging plant that exploded. And I learned a lot in getting that claim buttoned up and taken care of and adjusted out. But there was part of that claim that was very simple. And the simple part was we got in touch with the carrier and said, okay, you see that the vacant lot over there? It wasn't always like that. A very short time ago, there was a facility there and buildings and trucks coming in and out and checks going in every day and people all over the place. And it's not there now. So that's pretty clear. You need to give us a big chunk of money right now. And that part of it worked out okay. That was a very short conversation. A coronavirus claim would not be like that. We would advise the adjuster that, yeah, look, we realized these business downfalls. We operated with a skeleton crew. We, lost money. The money just wasn't coming in. And the adjuster will say, could that be to any other usual business condition? For example, you have a big customer of yours who diversifies their operation, focuses elsewhere, and simply doesn't buy as much of your stuff as they used to buy. Or a myriad of other normal business types of conditions that could result in business basically being off significantly. So what that means is that in order to prove these things out, you really need to have your file right. You need to have thorough documentation. And you would need to have a trail of tying every type of business shortfall that you're experiencing to something coronavirus related. So towards that, if you want to explore this further, you can go to our website, and we put together a checklist kind of thing, outline, a couple pages, which basically tell you what it is that should be in that file that you may choose to build. So I'm reminded of that story because it's funny. Last week we said, look, these aren't covered claims and this is why. And this week we're saying, well, maybe you should submit a claim. And it was Einstein had a class. He's got a proctor, and he gives the students a test. And 6 months later, he gives them a test with the same question. And the proctor says, hey, Einstein, 6 months ago, you asked him the same question. And Einstein says, yeah, I did. But there's a different answer now. The world has changed. Things shift, things change, things develop. So I guess it's with, that type of thinking that I, present the idea that this is something that maybe we want to consider. So that's pretty much the information that I wanted to talk about today. Please feel free to, you can contact me through the website if you want to talk. So thank you thanks again for joining us, and be well.